It's not who gets in the first word that counts, but who gets in the last word. Now, the guys that always get in the last word, brothers Tom and Dave.
Hi, I'm Tom Laz.
And I'm little brother Dave Laz.
And welcome to the day before election edition of The Last Word.
Indeed. Welcome back, brother. I guess my coup failed again.
Yes, I escaped and I've made it back. And because of the way you handled the show last week, I need to do housekeeping.
Oh, okay.
We always promise people with our shameless tease with the mind trap that you'd give an answer, and you didn't.
I didn't.
So the question was, we all know that Air Force One is the president's airplane. It's taken off one more time than it's landed. How could that be? And the answer that you didn't give last week
that's right. Okay.
was that when Richard Nixon was president, he took off on Air Force One. And while he was in the air, it became noon Eastern time. He ceased being president, and the plane ceased being Air Force One.
Indeed.
So that takes care of that bit of housekeeping. Now, to keep your chuckle your little tummies, but because I've got two rants or so, I'm going to keep this one short. This one's a short little joke.
And we're going to really get you fired up over some of the stuff you're going to hear from our guest as to motivate you to get out there on election day tomorrow.
One day, long, long ago, there lived a woman who didn't whine, nag, or bitch. But this was a long, long time ago, and it was just for that one day. Okay.
Besides that, and you can send it. Here's what we want: all you married men out there, who say that
you've heard the old saying,
"I've been happily married for X amount of years, and I don't regret a day of it." Send in to thelastword@yahoo.com. Tell us about those years. Which day you don't regret?
Okay. Now, quick rant before we get on to our guest, Sean Morrison. There's the big hoopla about Rush, and it's interesting that you have people who say Rush should quit and step down. These are the liberal Democrats who want freedom for everybody, but apparently only as long as you agree with them. If you dare to disagree, then you have to step down. Because Bill Maher has called Sarah Palin a stupid broad. He's used the C word in referring to her. He's called Barbara Bachmann a slut, and nobody complains about Bill Maher because he's one of them. You also hear how 98 companies refuse to do business with Rush or Hannity or Mark Levin. And I know we're talking other stations, but we're talking policies that affect the country. What you need to know more is those 98 companies don't do business with MSNBC or CNN either because they don't want to get involved in the political track. So don't fall into that trap that people are falling away from Rush. Third, the Obama people have found a new way to deal with the fact that the polls show their president in a bad light. One, they take issue with the polling system itself, and two, they call the American people stupid. You don't like the results, so obviously your surveyors are stupid, or your stuff is. There's a problem with your question. Don't accept the fact that
choose A or B. You don't
they may
choices. It's A or B.
They may be right. All that being said, the new mind trap question for today. What is one thing that all wise men, regardless of their religion or politics, agree is between heaven and earth?
I would say that
sometime during the show, I will make sure you get the answer.
Fine. Yes, I understand, Tom. Thank you very much. Well, I would say that not even a wise man, even if you're not wise, even if you're a Democrat, you can answer this question. And with that, we are proud and happy to have on our show today Sean Morrison, Republican candidate in Cook County's 1st District for the County Board of Review, or specifically, I would say the County Board of Property Tax Review is what this does. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My pleasure to be here.
And this is one of those offices that is not exactly glamorous, I would say, even though I would say, to be able to use the term, I'm a commissioner of the Cook County Board of Review, 1st District. That's not a lot better than just saying, I'm president of the U.S.
Yeah, right.
It's got that nice, long, important sound to it. So, but Sean, you're running because I think you're fed up with the system. You're fed up with what you've seen. You're a private citizen. You started your own company. You created 1,000 jobs, and you're looking at it and saying there's something wrong here, and I want to come into the political fray and do something about it.
Absolutely right. Wow, I should bring you in as my campaign manager because that's what I've been saying for several months.
We'll come in and write for you.
Yeah, wow, look at that.
We won't write the rights. We'll write the right and write the wrong or wrong the right.
Now, your opponent has been running ads that say you can't lower taxes. Why don't we tell our listeners what is the Board of Review and what's its mandate and function in life?
Well, that's the funny part. We have a 10-year bureaucrat who's happy to tell everybody that he's been down there at the Board of Review for at least 10 years, as well as being a township assessor. And yet, you're right. That is the mandate that's within the Cook County's charter for what the Board of Review is. You are the taxpayer's advocate to review the assessment and to make the determination whether or not you can lower the property tax now.
Because, and that's the purpose, the sole purpose.
That's the sole purpose of the existence, correct.
Of the board.
Yeah.
No one comes before you and says, raise my taxes.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Not that I've never known you to do that. So when your opponent says, and you've had that on your commercials,
yes,
it's not my job to lower taxes.
Right.
Then I don't understand why
he's disregarding the mandate for the office.
Why does the Board of Review exist?
Yeah, exactly, and that was stunning to me when that came up. I mean, it was really ironic, when you have the sitting commissioner of the board at a public forum, at a Cook County public forum, state that as commissioner, his goal is not to lower your property tax assessment. To me, there's nothing more important, and nothing should be the mandate of the commissioner than that. I mean, your job is to be the advocate for the taxpayer. Your job is to want to lower the property tax when it's fair and reasonable to do so.
So with that in mind, we are going to ask that one question we ask every candidate we have come on the air. Sean Morrison, why should the voters of the 1st District of Cook County vote for you?
Well, the reason they should vote for me is because I will actively be a voice and an advocate on behalf of the taxpayers, homeowners of Cook County.
Now we've seen that there's a problem.
Yes.
You operate a business, security, a Morrison Security Corporation.
Correct, yeah.
So when you see a problem in your business, I'll bet you try to solve it because I'll bet you it saves you money.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely it does.
I'll bet that happens.
What a strange concept.
Yeah, go figure.
So,
dang Republicans.
You have seen some problems that exist in the Board of Review, and you want to take a look at some of these. And what problems have you seen that perk your interest?
Well,
as to what's going wrong and what the board can do better.
Yeah, absolutely. On a few occasions in the past, I also have commercial property in Cook County. And sadly, contrary to my accountant's advice, they're like, boy, I would never buy property in Cook County. I live here. I love Cook County. That being the case, though, I mean, we have excessive property tax bills and what I think are unrealistic property tax bills. So I've gone down there both for my home, as many of us taxpayers have, and for my commercial property, office space, things of that nature. And I was shocked the very first time I went at the archaic nature and the archaic setup that the Cook County Board of Review operates under. It's kind of like stepping back and into a 1970 time warp.
I like the 70s.
Yeah. Well, it was a good time.
Staying alive.
No. A lot of bad suits and bad hair, but
well, that's right. You make your appearance in a leisure suit, polyester, and bell bottoms.
Yeah. Well, that's about the only thing they're missing. People smoking in the office in a polyester suit. But aside from that, not too much has changed. You go there, though. All seriousness aside, when you go there, there's boxes and boxes, boxes and boxes of paperwork, and it's all in duplicate and triplicate form. The copies are still in the old yellow and pink and white, carbonated copies. I was amazed, and no wonder why it's so inefficient. No wonder why it takes so long to open and close these townships and to get property tax bills out on time. One of the things that we talk about in our campaign and our platform is bringing efficiency. And the way you bring efficiency, just like we do in business, is you bring efficiency through the best tools that you can get and afford. In this particular case, it would be the modernization of the computer system and the IT solutions that are available. I've said many times that there's cheap solutions out there. Some of them even free now in the public domain. Right now, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but if you want to appeal your property tax as homeowner, John Q. citizen, you have to fill out an application and apply to get a hearing date. And they'll send you a letter back saying, okay, your hearing date is set for June the 1st at 9:30 a.m. So you have to take a day off work. You have to drive downtown. You have to pay, $30 an hour now for parking. You sit in there and you sit in a room with about 50 or 60 other people. And they sit there and they call you out to basically a long tray table, and they ask you, Mr. Smith, why do you feel you need a tax break?
And okay, we're finished with phase one over here. Well, on the other side of the break here on The Last Word on WIND, we'll be back with Sean Morrison.
What happens?
Now, back to the show with the brothers that always have the last word, Tom and Dave.
That's right. This is Little Brother Dave Laz, back here with The Last Word with Big Brother Tom and our guest Sean Morrison, who is the Republican candidate in the 1st District for the Cook County Board of Review, and whose website is www.seanmorrisongop.com, for those of you who want to look and see about much information that Sean has on here. And if I'm looking at the website right now, and we'll get into this a little later, Sean, but some interesting information about your opponent in the U.S. Attorney's Office we can talk about a little later, huh?
Sure. In a little while.
But first, but
when we last left Sean Morrison, Sean was sitting with 60 other people in the arcane, dank offices of the Cook County Board of Review. A man comes up to Sean about his application and says,
"Is Sean Morrison here? Is Sean Morrison here?" And then at that point, you raise your hand and you stand up. And you go into another room. And there's probably, 10 or 12 analysts there. And you sit down with one of them and you present to them your evidence.
He takes out his quill pen.
I take right.
He takes out the quill pen.
Right. He or she takes out their quill, sticks it in the inkwell. Right. And hopefully they had a piece of coal to warm it up if it's in the winter. But anyhow, so no, what they do at that point is you present the evidence to them, and they ask you a few questions on your comps. The first one they ask is ironic: is do you think you need a property tax reduction? Most people I wouldn't think are going to answer as you said. No, I'm here to hopefully increase it. So that's what they do, and then the analysts take it back and they review it, and they review the evidence, and then they call you later and send you out a letter stating whether or not you received it. That makes a lot of residential taxpayers feel good. Most of the time, more than not, they'll get a break. It's usually a small break because the board wants people to feel as though they did something effective for them. My contention, though, and what we are putting forth is that none of that has to occur. I mean, it still can occur if people choose to, and of course, the board would still welcome people to come down and sit before them. But there's absolutely no reason why a few things couldn't occur. The IDES, they've been conducting unemployment hearing cases via the phone for almost 17 years now in the state.
Okay.
At the very least, why not do a telephonic conference? You have the ability to copy and scan the evidence and email it off to them. But how about taking it one step further, which would not be that hard to implement, and that's to take the information, scan it in again, and conduct a hearing through Skype, through a GoToMeeting type process. That technology is free now. You can find that technology free through the internet, and it can all be cloud based. So imagine this: you can be sitting here as you are now with your laptop and going through a Skype. They take your PIN number, they bring it up, you're sitting there talking to the analyst, they ask you what your evidence is, you've already submitted it to them, so they can have it on a database. They can start to build a database, by the way. That's a whole other topic. But they can start to build a database based on the individual properties. And, you can conduct the hearing that way. And then when you're done, that might take 10 minutes, 12 minutes, you're done, you go back about your business. You can do it on your lunch. You can do it on your lunch break. You can do it at home, on your pajamas. You could even do it, at a park via your iPhones. I mean, a lot of the iPhones have the Skype, saving you taking off work, saving you driving down, saving you do that. But more importantly, how much more efficient would that be for the board to operate that way? Because now instead of having to get all those files, pull those paper files, do all those things, they've got it right there in a computer database. The analyst can literally pull it up, conduct a 10-minute hearing, boom, they're done. How many more people and how many more taxpayers could they accommodate that way?
And that kind of segs, yes.
How many less people would they need to work in the office?
In other words, with the office running more efficiently?
That's where the efficiencies come in. That's how you start to realize efficiencies in the business sector. If you're not efficient, you're out of business. If we're running our own family budgets, if we're spending too much money, we're out of business. Well, unfortunately, that's the other thing. The current commissioner, he's gone before the board and he's received over a 27% pay increase for staff and salaries in this past year alone.
And that's based upon all this paperwork sitting in the corners that you have to look, files you have to review, and all the paperwork you have to put out, instead of just pushing a few buttons on the computer and having it already there.
And those are Stroger holdovers?
So many of them are. Yeah, many of them are, sadly. Yeah.
And that kind of brings us into the question of one of the big things that we talk about, that we've had some of these people from the legislature come on here and talk about, is auditing. That so many of these offices need auditing to be done.
Right.
And what do you see as an audit? What would be audited that when you get elected, how would you have this audit performed? What's the idea behind it?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the problem. Right now, there's no mechanism in place to ensure, and this now would be on the commercial side, commercial real estate side, and that's where, in my opinion, I'm contending that there's the biggest amount of malfeasance taking place, which is costing the taxpayers of Cook County millions. Let me rephrase that: hundreds of millions of dollars.
Is that the subject of your communication with the U.S. Attorney?
That is definitely partial of those communications. Yes, on that side of it. On the commercial side of it, that's where the situation's highly rigged and highly manipulated.
And how is that?
Why don't you expand on that?
Because you as we were talking off the air about that, the law mandates that 1/3 of Cook County revenue come from property taxes, and that there's a little, shall we say, too much discretion, too much play in the situation that allows for commercial property to get the break.
Yeah. My opponent has contended that, again, getting back to that there's nothing you can do to help foster change for lowering property tax, of which I say there's many things you can do. You just have to have the will to do it. But it's the subjective side of the property tax reductions that concern me. I was mentioning that roughly $1 billion a year of revenue is generated through property tax, and that's set by the legislature each year, and then the county collects that money. And it doesn't matter where it comes from. They don't care if it comes from the commercial side or if it comes from the homeowner side. What goes on is that you have your taxing bodies and your levies, and there's a certain amount that's going to be there for the schools and for emergency services and libraries and all those things. It's the point beyond that I call the subjective aspect of it. And that's really the problem in our current tax system and our current property tax system. The subjective side leaves itself open for the commissioners to sit there and say, well, okay, we're going to grant a reduction here or we're not. That subjective nature is easily in the hundreds of millions of dollars. That subjective figure is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, the reason that I can say with confidence that I can lower property taxes within a year's time is because if there's $100 million right now that's subjectively being reduced because of preferential treatment based on the tens of thousands of dollars that a practicing law firm that appears before me just gave me 2 weeks earlier, and now they're bringing commercial properties in front of me to issue a ruling as to whether or not I'll reduce those taxes by $1 million, $2 million, $10 million. That's subjective. And if I go ahead and do that, and I do that time and time again for the numerous, thousands of pieces of commercial property within the county, and I do that every year in and year out, that's several $100 million that would not have to have an increase on the residential side.
And that was going to be my point. This is truly a zero-sum game.
It's a zero-sum game, and it's literally a teeter-totter. If I drop $100 million in commercial properties unnecessarily or because of a unfair assessment, I need to raise that $100 million off of the backs of the homeowners. And that's part of the reason why our property taxes have skyrocketed in the last decade alone.
So would it be a safe get to say that maybe the Board of Review needs a little bit of campaign finance reform?
It absolutely does. It absolutely needs finance reform, but unfortunately, it's there's the legal issues and then there's the ethical issues about it. And unfortunately, in other campaign appearances, my opponent has made it very clear that he doesn't feel he has any ethical problems at all. It's okay with him to take $10,000 contributions from just one law firm, and he doesn't see a problem with that.
And that law firm appears before him representing people who come there,
representing commercial properties
to come there to ask for a reduction.
Correct. In the sum of millions and millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars.
And has this been, shall we say, a methodology of his?
Yeah, it is. I mean, he's really personified and perfected the ability to extrapolate, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars from these law firms.
Now, the easy way people could find this out, if they go online with the Board of Elections.
Correct.
A candidate has to file what's called a D2 every 6 months.
Yeah, D2 or D4, right.
And by looking at a D2, they'd be able to find out who all these law firms are, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. I can make it really easy for you. If you go on our website, SeanMorrisonGOP.com, if you go right to a section that says facts, if you go on it and click it, you can click that. You can click a link that will bring you right to the most current, within 30 minutes, the most current donations that Mr. Palick has received. Just in the last 30 days alone, he's taken in $44,000. Additionally, from the very law firms, from the very property tax law firms that appear before him and seek a reduction for their commercial clients.
So, then that's available. We're going to go back. You know what, John? We're going to take a look at that link, and maybe we'll take a look and see what comes up in the last 30 minutes or so or hour here on The Last Word.
Right after this news, so people know what's going on.
Great.
They're lawyers, so they'll always have the last word. Here's Tom and Dave.
Okay, what's going on in the world now, and let's get back to what's going to be happening tomorrow and how you get to help yourself in Cook County as far as your property taxes are concerned. Sean, we were talking about the fact that your opponent has gotten a bunch of money from the law firms who then come in front of him and say, cut my client some slack.
Yeah.
Which is basically, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, right. It does. It does.
And because it's commercial property is not that easy to compare because of what the innate nature of commercial property, what you do, a warehouse that does this type of work or stores this type of stuff. It's not as easy, I think, to objectively compare as residential property, which is why I think you're saying there's that subjective area.
Correct.
That a person can play with.
Because that makes your opponent the candy man. Because when it comes to commercial property, there's the fudge factor.
There you go.
You can use that. No copyright.
Okay. Yeah.
You can use the fudge factor.
Yes, absolutely.
So now, this has led to a point where I said you have gone, and you can check this out on Sean's website. Sean Morrison, let me see if I get him right over here, Sean Morrison, GOP.com. You can check it out where he is taking this to the U.S. Attorney's Office. So you can see, basically we're doing where there's smoke, there's fire over here. And apparently you found some smoke. You found some cinders.
Yeah, I mean, we've been smelling the smoke for, probably 7 or 8 months, actually. And that's part of what re-energized me to decide to jump into this foray again. My opponent, let's leave it at that.
That's the way we do it.
There you go. He basically said, well, if Mr. Morrison feels that I've done something unethical or wrong, he should bring it to the proper government authority. Well,
and you did it.
And we did it. We actually spent quite a bit of time, and we investigated some patterns. And what we found was this, to make it as simple as I can. We have numerous, hundreds and hundreds of pages of documents and exhibits and things of that nature, where either a property owner and or a law firm representing them went to the assessor. The assessor ruled that nope, that was the accurate current assessment rate. And very, very shortly thereafter, there were donations that were made, sizable. And then they brought the very same case, to the Board of Review. And in some cases, they received a 60% cut in the assessed value.
Oh.
How does the Cook County assessor rule that nope, that's the fair value, certify it, and then less than a few short months later, it goes in front of the Board of Review by the firm that made some sizable donations, and they received a 60% reduction.
Tom Cruise has the answer to that.
Yeah.
Show me the money.
Yeah.
And I can assure you, I'm not going to take the time to give it any names over here, but I can assure you by going to the Election Commission and using going to Sean's website and clicking on, that you'll see quite a few law firms who have given $1,000 and above to your opponent's campaign.
Yeah. So what do? We took our findings, and then just this past week, a independent. We were contacted. I don't know if I can say it, by a major Chicago media source on the news that said, "Would you care to comment on a story that we're doing?" And I asked what it was, and they said, "Well, we've had a few property tax attorneys that have contacted us that wanted to that have a story to tell about being squeezed by Mr. Patlak for donations." I went down there and I reviewed some of the video of it, and I gave comment. They also, I believe, showed it to Mr. Patlak, and he refused to do so. But Mr. Patlak gave a written statement instead, and in his statement, unbeknownst to him, in his statement, he said if Mr. Morrison has any kind of evidence, he should present it. Well, unbeknownst to him, we had been working on it. So we actually did contact the U.S. State's Attorney's Patrick Fitzgerald's office. We spoke with them about the proper procedural format to go ahead and submit our complaint, and what our standing was to do so. We spoke with them at length and determined that the best route to do it was to actually take our evidence and actually present that to the FBI, because they're the ones that have the body and the resource to actually conduct the investigation. So we've done both now. We presented the files to both the U.S. Attorney and to the Federal Bureau of Investigations. And I'm sure that they're quite interested.
I find it rather interesting looking at the site over here for contributions that one individual in particular who lives in Ventura, California, has so far donated $5,000 collectively to your opponent's campaign. Considering that there has to be. Why would somebody from Ventura, California do that?
It's interesting, unless he maybe owned a property here.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Now,
and by the way, that person may or may not have ever donated to another taxing body before and or after.
So one of the things that we're talking about over here now, you want to put in place something to stop this, where these types of contributions will not be accepted. This will not be able to be used as a manner to sway anybody on the board. For
several months now, I've been calling out my opponent and telling him, "Hey, listen, we need to limit." I have limited. In fact, I've not taken any money from any of the attorneys at all. In fact, I pretty much self-finance my campaign.
And I think that's a great idea, not to take money from attorneys.
Yes.
Yeah, we think, yeah. Thanks, Sean.
I mean, listen.
Us off the hook.
The hardworking attorneys actually probably will embrace that, because they're not going to be squeezed by me. They're not going to be squeezed by Sean Morrison, because it needs to be limited to $250 if they're going to make one. And that's what I've said and challenged him to do. He's refused to do that.
Yeah, he's refused. He's refused to make any type of limits. Well, we'll be back after this break so we can pay the bills here at the Last Word on WIND 560 AM. Back with Sean Morrison and a little bit more about property tax review.
Didn't get enough of your family for the holidays? Here's two brothers you can always count on for the last word. Tom and Dave.
Alrighty, unlike little brother last week, I'm going to try to maintain or reestablish our credibility with our listeners by giving the answer to today's teasing mind trap question. The question was, what is one thing that all wise men, regardless of their religion or politics, agree is between heaven and earth? For all of you who pondered this for the last half hour plus,
smoke coming out of your ears,
the answer is the word and.
There you go.
And is between heaven and earth. If you thought it was something else, you fell into the mind trap. Now, getting back to more serious matters, which affect your pocketbook and how much property taxes you're going to pay, let's get back to our guest, Sean Morrison, candidate for Cook County Board of Review.
And with the website at SeanMorrisonGOP.com.
Yes. And that's me.
And that's you. That's you. So, the big ethics and transparency problems with the office.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever an elected official thinks that it's okay to accept those types of funds from the very tax attorneys that are appearing before them to seek an assessment reduction, and they think that that's okay, that's to me, that's a character flaw. So that's my...
Now is your opponent nepotism? I think is one thing that has always been a problem historically in Cook County government and in Chicago government. What's your position on that as to how the office needs to be cleared up on that? It
needs to be reformed two ways, actually, and I'm glad you brought that up. Nepotism usually is on the familial side. He has the political hiring side. Several members of his staff, paid staff, were and are members of his campaign staff in his last election, and are also members of his campaign staff now. For example, his chief of staff, a gentleman that makes $139,000 a year, is also his campaign manager. Several of his board clerks who make $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year salaries are also his campaign workers. Almost 65% of his total signatures in this last go around came from his Cook County Board of Review employees.
So the question is, what would you do?
What would I do? I've stated this as well in my campaign. I will not hire any campaign workers to work on my staff at the Board of Review. I think it's important that once I'm there, that we bring in attorneys and accountants and very well qualified people to actually be the analysts and not the political hacks.
Now, in terms of who's there, unfortunately, again, given I would say the labor rules and everything like that. How easy would it be for you to implement these types of reforms? Would you have to wait for attrition? Can you go ahead and start looking at people and saying, hey, you're out of here?
Well, I think just like in the business world, you hold people and you make them accountable. They're going to have jobs to perform. They're going to have certain levels in which they're going to need to operate under. One of the things you can do as managers is we can ask and we can implement ethic contracts. There will be no donations from employees. There will be no donations from family members. There will be no campaigning on county time, as my opponent has several of his staff members.
So, when it comes to that, who you said you basically funded your campaign? Have you put a limit on your campaign contributions?
Yeah. My wife would like that. I put a limit on it. Yeah, right. Right.
Now, we have had a 67% increase in income tax. Mm-hmm. And my understanding is there's foul play afoot. Something is amiss in Springfield that's going to affect property taxes here in Cook County. Yeah. Actually, throughout the state.
Something throughout the whole state. Something occurred just a few short weeks ago, and I'm not sure how many people followed it or not. But I actually wrote an op-ed piece on it about 10 days ago. A few weeks ago, Governor Quinn, supported by Mr. Madigan, have floated the idea that we're facing an $890 million pension fund liability shortage. And they have floated the idea that perhaps what they'll do is they'll take that $890 million and throw it back into the individual school districts. If that occurs, that's in addition, by the way, to all the debt and everything that we already have as taxpayers on our home property tax bills. We will immediately, within one signature of a pen, be added $190 million, nearly $1 billion. And that's just for 1 year. That's just a one lump fee on top of everything else that we already have, and then how that will continue to move forward.
Now, a little red flag I'm going to throw up over here is that throwing that money back on the property tax is going to go both to the residential and the commercial.
Correct.
So what that means is there is more of that
cushion.
There's that play area on the commercial side where the residential property tax owner can get hit harder.
Correct.
Than the commercial would with this $1 billion tax.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tax increase.
Absolutely. And it's unfair in a lot of senses. Cranes did an article recently where they talked about the valuations and the difference in the property, even though we've been killed on average. On average, the whole county is roughly 48% is the median average of an increase. Okay. However, the northern
48%.
Yeah, 48%. The northern townships, some of them are facing 60 and 70% increases during that same time. So we're all getting killed. Some are getting killed even worse.
So let's break that down into simple totals. I have $1,000, for an example. I'm paying $1,000 property tax. I mean, that's ridiculous, but I just use it for bigger. I'm paying $1,000 a year property taxes. That means that next year I will pay $1,700.
Correct.
Just by a stroke of the pen.
Just by a stroke
of the
of the pen.
Democratic legislator, the Democratic legislature, the Democratic governor.
Yeah,
all
40
those
years of
Democrats.
Democratic leadership in this state, and that's what we have for right now. That's what we're facing.
So we need to get word out that we're not going to take that anymore.
No.
I think it's time to get out
Tax
there
revolt.
and say that and to have a tax revolt. And I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to go a little bit back to this at the other end of the break, other side of the break regarding what can be done about that. Here on The Last Word, WIND 560 AM with candidate Sean Morrison.
Now, back to the show with the brothers that always have the last word, Tom and Dave.
You know, I like the background of that song because actually I say we should start the fire. Sean, you're here to start the fire.
That's a great song actually for this.
And bring it to a taxpayer. I wouldn't say a taxpayer revolt, but taxpayer fairness, taxpayer equity. Now, with what's happening down in the Senate, with Governor Quinn, with Emperor Madigan, and with Senator Cullerton shifting this is what the state is trying to do, is trying to take its obligations for paying for teachers' pensions and shifting that to the local school district. That's the primary purpose of this.
Yeah.
So all this stuff about the lottery helping to pay and the income tax increase helping to pay, it ain't working.
Right.
It just isn't working. And now, not only again are we facing the 67% increase, we are facing an increase in our property taxes.
Right.
Now, in your position, when you are elected to the Board of Review, by the authority of your position, there's not much you can do about that per se. But you can certainly, and you said that you're going to be an advocate and an outspoken advocate whenever there's issues coming around in Springfield regarding property taxes. What's your plan?
Yeah, I mean, that speaks right to the point. I can't change this thing right now that Madigan and Quinn are talking about, but that's why in that article I wrote, I asked people, hey, start calling now and start lobbying them now and letting them know that you're not going to tolerate this any further. As a commissioner, I will go down to Springfield often as I can and try to interject myself in some of these processes and try and call for advocacy on behalf of us property taxpayers. This is going to have a lot of effect not only on us, it's going to have a big effect on business as well. And
because inevitably it's going to be raising residential, inevitably they're raising business, which means companies are going to look at Illinois and say, hold it. Is this with all the other stuff that Illinois is now putting on us? Why should I come here? Why should I expand here? Why should I come here? Why should I do business here? Which means you're going to have less income tax, and then you got the spiral going down.
Right.
Which again is why we have the worst credit rating of any state in the nation.
Yeah, right.
Because of the workings of the Democrats. No. But we need to get you past the primary.
Right.
That's what's coming up tomorrow. As a matter of fact, less than about 30 hours away from voting. And again, we'd like to put you as Sean Morrison. You're running for the Cook County Board of Tax Review on the Republican ballot.
Right. Very important. Pull Republican ballot.
This is Punch 91.
Correct.
And that doesn't mean that you have to find somebody who's 91 and go out there and punch him.
Right.
You do mean punching the little thing over there. We don't have any hanging Chad problems anymore.
No hanging Chads I'm aware of.
Okay, because I had a friend that was named Chad, and he was up in the tree hanging. And I said that was the hanging Chad over there. And I believe you've gotten some strong endorsements.
Yeah, we have. I mean, we've received several of the Republican township committees. We received the FOP, so we're very pleased with that.
And that's Federation of Police.
Fraternal Order of Police.
Not Federation of Politicians.
Fraternal Order
of Police.
Right. Exactly.
Well, Sean, we'd like to say we are happy to have you on. We are happy here to get your word out. We believe that you are a man of your word, and just let our listeners know we don't bring people on the show lightly that we don't believe in.
Well, thank you.
That we don't feel should be there to get their message out, and are not sincere people who despite all the negativity about politics, here's a man coming in from the private sector, willing to put himself forward and be subject to a lot of criticism for coming into this, because he wants to simply do something as simple as lower property taxes, which your opponent says is impossible to do,
right.
which the statute says you can do.
Right.
But with that, we'd like to take the time right now, since we are just a day before election, and give some endorsements over here. Of course, we strongly endorse Shore and Morrison in Cook County. For the Cook County Board of Tax Review, we'd like you to vote for Don Sampson.
If you're pulling Democratic ballots, it's a rare thing we're crossing over.
But
vote, please. There's people in cemeteries in Normandy and other national cemeteries.
Amen.
So that you could do this. They stand in lines and miles in Afghanistan. Don't let them outdo us. Vote.